in the last few years, one term which has become really popular is FIRE. Everyone nearly wants to retire early. Some say, okay, I have made reasonable money and I want to pursue different interests. I no longer want to work for someone. Some people who are not enjoying their work, they want to somehow get money, somehow get cash flow and retire. My personal definition is financial retirement is when you have made enough money so that you don't have to work for money any longer in your life. Physical retirement is when your body or mind refuse to work and you cannot actively work any longer. One thing which came to my mind about 10 years back was how far me and my spouse are from our retirement. At that stage, it became a very interesting exercise to use Excel, do a bit of modeling, do a bit of forecasting. But somehow the idea was that you need to start working on passive cash flow. And there will be a day when passive cash flow will be more than your expenses. Now, when we talk about Excel modeling, when we talk about a lot of stuff that we see on YouTube, like the 4% formula, 40-60 rule, there are a lot of terms that people have coined. Now, it becomes nightmarish for normal people to comprehend so much of formulas and so much of rules. So what I thought was, let's simplify the Excel that I already made in the past, get all the complex formulas of forecasting out, just play with simple things, inflation, interest rates, and cash flow. We all have a reasonable idea of inflation. It is somewhere around 5 to 6% compounded. Compounded means if something was 100 rupees last year and inflation was 5%. This year it would be 105 rupees. Now this year suppose inflation comes down to 2%. Then 105 will become approximately 107 point something. It does not mean it will be 102. Interest rates are a bit different, especially if you are in a cash flow mode. If you are taking the interest out, say from your bonds, from your fixed deposits, whatever instruments you are using, your rental income, if the money is ending into your pocket, then it is not compounding. If you are taking the interest at the end of say 4 or 5 years, then every year it will compound also. But if you are talking about passive cash flow, most people tend to take out the money every month, every quarter, every 6 months. Also, the goalpost of your retirement keeps shifting. About 15 years back, when I started talking about retirement, people thought I was crazy because I had just 5-7 years in the job and I was talking about retirement. So at that time, it felt like roughly 1 crore, maybe 2 crore kind of number. Maybe great. My expenses were somewhere around 25-30,000. Interest rates were still high. So I thought that 1 crore will give probably something like 70-80,000 rupees interest income. My expense at 30-40,000. Remaining I'll invest. Today, people talk about 2 CR, 4 CR, 5 CR, some talk about $1 million, which is equivalent to roughly 8.5 CR. Based upon your income, based upon your aspirations, everyone has a low, medium, high goal to retire. The idea is that once you retire, the money will become kind of stationary. It will start giving you some income and you will live off that income. It does not work like that. For the simple reason that if you're talking about simple fixed income, which is basically bond yield, FD interest, they keep on fluctuating. Now, at the point where you are going to retire, at that time, interest rates may be really low. They may be high. You might start there, but in 5 years' time, the interest rates may come down. If you start getting into equity pretty late in life, then the dividend yields may not be high. Just for an example, if you were to buy a stock like Power Finance Corporation, Rural Electrification Corporation, something like that last year, about 1.5 years back approximately, the dividend yields were close to 9 to 10%. Today they have come down to 3.5%, 4% because the stock price has gone up significantly. So unless you have acquired stocks at a reasonable price to give you a good dividend yield, the return will not be enough to give you a cash flow, even though you might have the corpus. So idea is to understand the overall process, understand the plan, have the ability to tweak it when the inflation or interest rate go really exceedingly up high or low, and then balance it out. Idea is that the mountain behind you of cash, the pile of cash that you are working hard on accumulating, you need to know the size of it to be in control of it. Also, one clarity I would like to provide is that you don't have to necessarily maintain the pile. You know your life expectancy, 80, 90, 100, there'll be some number in your mind. So as long as you don't plan to leave a lot of cash behind you for your kids, grandkids, which is okay, you can plan off slowly burning down something like a reverse mortgage, slowly burning down till it approaches zero somewhere 5 or 10 years after the life expectancy you have in your mind. In one of my previous videos regarding financial planning, the milestones, I talked about the most vulnerable age being 35 to 50, when our financial expenses are in the red zone for most people. I'll leave the video link in the description, and in the end, do watch it if you haven't. So please note that beyond a point, your expenses will go down. Medical expenses will increase beyond the rate of inflation, maybe, if you don't have a good insurance policy. One thing also to note is, if you do your financial planning right, and maybe because of FIRE movement or because of being in control of your financial plan, if you retire 5 or 10 years earlier than you thought you will have to retire, just because you don't want to take risk and keep on creating the pile higher and higher and higher, so that you are absolutely sure you'll not run out of money, then maybe you can retire at an age where you can enjoy the cash that you have earned, the investments you have made, the cash flow that is being generated from those investment instruments more fully. So we'll jump to an Excel model. Don't be afraid of it at all. I've taken out most of the complex formulas. I've simplified it. I'll do it step by step. Moreover, right after the video, you can go to the description section. I have left a pinned comment with the link of the Excel. You can download it, use it on your computer, do the modeling the way you want. I've also created 3 templates. Level 1 is for folks who are not planning for an exorbitant retirement. They are happy with what they have and they would want to have a decent lifestyle. Medium is where most people would want to aspire. They don't want to become very rich, or they can't become very rich, but they want to have a good retirement. Level 3 is basically people who are already in a high income zone, who have a lot more surplus cash than they need today, and they are investing aggressively towards their future. But they are the people who are probably most scared about the size of the mountain they want to have behind them. Typically, if you are around 50, the portfolio size should be 50-50, which is 50% on equity side or the riskier side, 50% on the defensive side, which is more of passive income or bonds, FDs kind. So I've assumed 60-40. You can tailor the formula easily if you want to. 60% I have kept at equity side, which grows at a CAGR of 14%. A lot of people, for risk management, they assume that inflation is higher or the return from stock market would be lower. Interest rates may be lower. That is not the right way. When it comes to compounding, one difference in interest rate, for example, if you reduce a CAGR of equity from 14% to 13% or 12%, it will make a huge difference in the overall plan. In fact, these numbers are kind of related. For example, if the industry is in a high, typically that leads to inflation going up. To bring down the inflation, the interest rates are increased. That will slow down the economy. When economy slows down beyond a point, to revive it, we lower the interest rate. When interest rates get lowered, again the demand picks up. People start taking loans. Uh, the goods get produced at a lower price. There is demand generated, and eventually stock market picks up. So somewhere, if you predict these as a cycle, these numbers can be predicted. In the model I've created base rates, and I have used those base rates every year. But you can tinker with each and every year's rate if you want to. For example, you can increase the inflation to say 7% for a few years, bring down the interest rate to 4% for a few years, and so on. That will make the model very practical for you if you want to build in the cycle. Let's understand the structure of the Excel first. If you see on the right side, inflation rate 6%, interest rate 7%. This is post-tax. Stock market returns 14%. This is CAGR. The column F, that has the same stock return of 14% throughout, which means every year contains the same value. You can go ahead and change the number for certain years. Inflation 6% throughout the worksheet. You can adjust it for certain years. Interest rate 7%. All these values are coming from the standard values in column NNO. This area defines your expenses, household expenses. Note, this does not equate to EMI. This is expenses on your house like maintenances, electricity, internet, and so on. Food expenses, recreation, medicines, kids. This again does not include education. This is what you would spend on kids once they are settled in life, but you would want to, say, for example, do certain gifting and so on. This is not their living expenses. Miscellaneous expenses, don't know what they will be. Aspirational, you can avoid them, you can do them. If you are constrained, then don't do them. Overall, this is amounting to 1 lakh. Now, this 1 lakh number again may be conservative for few or aspirational for few. There will be 3 versions of this model in the Excel when I upload it, and you can check the one that works best for you, customize it further. This is a sample. The model starts in the year 2024 with an initial corpus of 2 crore rupees. This is an aspirational amount that someone may have accumulated over their life who want to retire at the age of 45 in the year 2024. This is again an example. You could use it to future forecast your retirement. For example, in 2024, you might have say 1 CR. Now you want to retire say at the age of 50 in 2029. So now what looks like a total portfolio of 2 CR, in 2029 you will need roughly 3 CR worth of portfolio to achieve the same lifestyle which has been explained in the model. So that is the beauty of this Excel, that you can use it to predict your future requirement, not necessarily plan where you are with respect to retiring now. 2 CR is the starting portfolio, 60% and 40% is the divide of the portfolio in equity versus cash flow. So based upon 2 CR, 60%, 1,20,000 is in equity, remaining 80 lakh is in cash flow. Cash flow could be bonds, FDs, a bit of maybe gold. Gold cash flow would be too low. It could be dividend yield cash equity also. Based upon the formula that we have discussed, which is interest rate 7%, the annual cash flow from 80 lakh is 5,60,000. Now, based upon your 1 lakh rupees worth of monthly expenses, the starting annual expense will grow at 7%, which is the inflation rate throughout. So what is a 12 lakh per year expense today? In 2045 would be 41 lakh rupees per annum. These numbers may look astonishingly high right now, may give you a feeling that, oh, how will I manage? But this is the reality. This is how things change with compounding of inflation. So whatever was less in your annual cash flow was deducted from your equity portfolio, which was growing at a healthy 14%. Now, if you see in the model, what I have done is I have added 10 lakh per year to the portfolio for cash flow. This is to account for inflation and generate extra income. Also, the formula expects a value in the addition for the year. If you are earning something ad hoc or periodic, you could add it to your portfolio also. The ratio would be 60% in equity, 40% in cash flow. The total portfolio in year 2025 would be basically whatever you had initially, whatever you earned, minus the net expenses. So next year, you will end up with 2 crore 15 lakh, which is a net increase of 15 lakh in the portfolio size. And the formula repeats over the years. Let's try out few things. Suppose the interest rate in year 2048 drops to 5%. So if you see, immediately the annual cash flow component here reduced to 5,50,000. It was somewhere around 7.5 lakh. Let's undo this. 7,70,000. So suppose inflation next year zooms to 10%. So immediately the annual expenses for 2025 will increase to 13,20,000. Earlier they were 12,72,000. Now maybe your age is 40 right now. So at 40, if you have 2 CR, this is the number. At 50, suppose you want to retire. At 50, you will have to, in 10 years, plan for a corpus of 4 CR to get the same lifestyle which you are maintaining today as per the model we have discussed here, which is an expense of 1 lakh rupees. What this model leads to as retirement is at the age of 75, this corpus will keep on increasing. Towards your end, which is 75 in the model, you will be left with 23.5 CR and you will leave it to your kids and grandkids. Let's see the impact of CAGR in stocks. Let's bring it down to 12%. Let's be a bit defensive in our stock selection. You see, immediately this amount came down to 3.2 CR. This is the power of compounding. Just 2% per year over 25 years can make a difference of 20 CR to your portfolio without changing anything. Now, let's say if you have assumed inflation to be wrong and you want to change inflation number from 6 to 8%. Remember, this is 23.5 CR you're retiring with. So inflation hits consumption, 8% inflation. You are out of money in the year 2056. Negative balance in the portfolio, you will be short of 7.5 CR, which means you retired early if inflation was 8% compounded. This is how strong this model is. Now let me quickly walk you through the three versions, level 1, level 2, level 3 of this model, L1 being lowest, L3 being highest. You could use any of these as a starting point to do your modeling. This is the first one. Let's call this model L1. This is the same numbers that we discussed while during the modeling part, where your monthly expense is 1 lakh, your starting corpus is 2 CR. L2, these are typically people who would be somewhere around 3 lakh to 6 lakh kind of salary at family level per month, approximately speaking, in today's time value of money. Starting corpus of 5 CR. Again, increased expenses on house, food, recreation, medicines, kids, miscellaneous, aspiration. All these sections have a higher value, leading to an expense of 2,75,000 per month. If we scroll down, again here, the person is retiring well. The overall value of his corpus will be 22.2 CR. Note that at that time, the expenses will be 2 crore 53 lakh per annum against 33 lakh right now, which is approximately 8x. Jumping to L3, this is high income bracket. Here we have assumed a starting corpus of 8.5 CR. This number came from the famous $1 million to retirement goal, which is popular these days, especially in the FIRE community. Aspirationally, the expenses are higher. So home would be large. So there'll be a lot of maintenance, upgrades, and so on. A lot of high quality food, a lot of dining out. Recreation would be a lot of travel. If you're not taking care of your health, the medical expenses may be higher. Kids again would be independent. You would have spent some money with them. They would have been educated well, doing their own stuff. Miscellaneous expenses of 50,000, aspirational 50,000. You're already taking care of the aspirations in above sections. Overall expense of 5 lakh rupees in today's time value of money. That's the starting part. How does this model scale over years? You run out of money towards the last 2 years approximately. Let's check the inflation numbers. 6%, interest 7%, stocks 14%. So this model performs reasonably well. Just in the last 2 years, it runs out of steam. Let's tune this a bit. Now, how do we tune it? Let's bring down, say, the cost that we spend on certain items. Let's say the overall expenses we are incurring on home. Let's bring it down to 75,000 from 1 lakh. Immediately, we have 26 crores left versus a negative deficit. This is the power a small adjustment into your expenses, interest rates, inflation rates can have when compounded over 25 years. Hope this modeling was informative and powerful for you. Please download a copy. Try it out. If you need any help, leave some comments below and I'll try and get back as soon as I can. For contingency, what you can do is, one is use gold as one of the investments. SGB is an excellent instrument for that because it also gives you 2.5% interest rate. So my philosophy is 2 years worth of expenditure should be in gold. So today, if your expenses are 1 lakh rupees a month, you should have 24 lakhs worth of gold in your SGB or whatever format you prefer account, so that you can use it as a hedge against uncertainty. If something really goes wrong in the country, in the world, then gold will go up definitely. It will take care of the uncertainty, where typically your currency may get depreciated, stock markets may crash, and so on. Second is, have a bit of extra reserves for something that cannot be planned, maybe a major illness. So maybe 10% of your portfolio size can be set aside as a real big reserve outside your planning. Yes, it can give cash flow, but it has to be reasonably liquid, which means that even if you have to sell it a bit of lower price or a loss, still you are able to sell it. It's just like a large cap stock. Even if the prices have gone down, there'll be some buyer all the time. Also, the model allows you to continue working after you have achieved financial independence. You may work, for example, as a consultant for reduced hours, ad hoc. Maybe you are writing books and you are getting some royalty. So whatever extra money you are earning, if you are adding it to your corpus, there is a column to add ad hoc money to your corpus. The number is 60% equity, 40% fixed income. It will automatically proportionally divide the money and add it to those corpuses. You can again tinker with those numbers.